Greetings, it is I, Tantus now around Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome! It is time to continue our discussion on anime series where I review them, and then I give you some suggestions if you want to use them in your BESM series. So let's continue where we left off with some more from previous season, fall 2016, and talk about some from 2015. For the two from 2016, I've got Cheating Craft and Bloodivore. Let's start with those. Cheating Craft. So this is set in a world where examinations mean everything. And even from a young age, children are divided up in the result of their exams. That they're continually broken down. And only the best children get into the best positions in their adult life by having success on these tests. This has resulted in two types of student. The L types, which are all about learning and successfully studying and are very good at that. And the C types. Masters of cheating, those that get by learning from the others. And oftentimes these two groups team up in order to get the best results. We meet a team up of C-type Mooning and L-type Quinol, who are teaming up to take their tests. These two are uniting and are proving themselves to be a powerful team when it comes to taking these tests, competing against a number of other teams in these examination halls that are their battlegrounds in order to get the highest test results and therefore the greatest place in life after everything is said and done. Now I call this one action. They're like these kind of battle scenes between the C types that are kind of ridiculous when you think about it in this entire setting. It's also a parody. They're trying to parodize, the difficulties of these test-taking world that exists, especially mimicking some of the test-taking world when it comes into Japan and their systems that they use for test-taking. And of course, because it's a parody, it's a comedy. There's a lot of funny things happening. Even the battles, in their own ridiculous ways, are kind of silly and crazy, and they make you kind of chuckle to yourself. Now, the thing is, I do only rate this one a 3. It's a pretty decent series, but it wasn't so great in my eyes that I, wanted to watch it right away every time. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I'd recommend 200 points. You're going to be an elite team of characters trying to work together to succeed at finding the perfect answers for the test and completing it. You'll have on your L side mastering of a lot of skills and knowledges that they're going to use to try to answer all these questions, while on the other hand, the C side is going to be using a variety of skills in order to take answers from others and to battle against the other C types, which might be able to try to take answers from your team's L types at the same time, making for very action and battle heavy and kind of testing skill tests repeatedly over and over again between the two groups, that you can have this dynamic of both going in the various tests. That your L-type characters are going to be making sort of your skill tests, and your C-type characters are going to probably try to answer the ones that they know they can't answer correctly. Try to fill in those blanks using their cheating prowess. All for battling against these teams for the ultimate glory and ultimate positions in when it comes to real life after all the testing is said and done for. So let's move on to the next series, Bloodivore. So this takes place, we have 60 years ago. There was this disease of insomnia that was basically racking people, eventually driving them mad or crazy because they couldn't sleep ever. Eventually a cure was found for this massive kind of plague of insomnia, but the unfortunate side effect is it would turn people into effectively vampires, which were dubbed Bloodivores. We meet Milui, who is said to be the child of hope, who was born from both human and Bloodivore. Unfortunately, this doesn't mean a lot for him, and in the process of doing this bank robbery, just for show, he and a bunch of others that were with him are blamed for murders that they technically did not commit. So they are then sentenced to death, even though they did nothing. Rather than being killed right away, they find themselves waking up in a strange place with other Bloodivore prisoners who were sentenced to death in this strange town, surrounded by monsters. All of them now have these explosive collars on their necks, and they have one mission now, to survive. Now this is an action one. They battle against monsters, attempt to survive, deal with the fact that they have sometimes disagreements with each other even. It's not a peaceful time going there in this situation. It's supernatural. They're vampires. There's, of course, monsters they're dealing with. It's, of course, going to be supernatural, and it is a vampire anime. It is sort of its own subgenre of supernatural. It is all about them being vampires, even though they call them Bloodivores. Now, I also rate this one a 3. It's not a bad series, but again, it didn't draw me in as much as some of the other ones did. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I recommend 400 points. Your characters are all going to be Bloodivores, and they're going to be sentenced effectively to death, whether they actually committed the crime or they did not. They will be sent to this mysterious place where they will have to survive against monsters with explosive collars in their necks. We're dealing with each other, with other NPCs, and trying to find out why they got there and what the heck is going on, and trying to get through this mystery of what's occurring at this point in time. Now let's move on and talk about those from 2015. I'm going to focus on Ghost in the Shell Arise and The Disappearance of Nagato Yuuki. Now for Ghost in the Shell Arise, I'm going to talk about Ghost in the Shell as a franchise, because there's been 5 movies and 3 series, along with manga in this series. So I'm just going to generalize about this. Otherwise, this particular series was more of a prequel series, even though all of the TV series technically have been more prequels to the original movie. If you compare them all to the original movie, they're all set before it. All the television series are, technically. Now for Ghost in the Shell, it's set in the 20th century, sometime in the distant future, where we're in Japan and we focus on this group within the government called Section 9. They're a special group of enforcement people that are made up of former military and police detectives combined together to deal with, of course, corrupt government officials, corrupt companies, and cyber criminals. So it is a very cyberpunk world, and where cybernetics are very widespread. We focus on our main character, Makoto Kusanagi, who is in fact a full-body cyborg. At a very young age, she was in some kind of unexplained accident. Well, not determined accident. No one really says what it really was. That resulted in her needing a full-body prosthetic. Effectively, only her brain is what's left of her that is organic, and most of that has been put in basically a shell. So she has a shell of a brain installed in a basically robotic body. So again, full-body cyborg. Her adventures and the various dealings with what's going on in the world and the various problems that exist within their society oftentimes run into her in her own kind of ways of accepting what she is in this new world. So this one is definitely an action series. They're in this sort of vaguely police force, so they get into these battles, definitely. They have their own kind of robots that they're fighting with. They have their own systems that they're dealing with things, battling against various enemies. It's also a sci-fi. It's a cyberpunk, if anything, which you would call it. It is set in a world of technology and diving into this like full-on, VR world where you can dive into this connection between people, into the virtual reality, into the internet sort of thing, or you can just exist as cyborgs, including full-body ones. But it's also very psychological. It deals with a lot of the emotions of what is human and how much is too much when it comes to cybernetics. It deals with things like AIs, about, the masses and the kind of connection between them, and that their own psychological messing around with what's going on in the real world now is creating some of the problems that they're encountering. So it does have a very huge psychological counters to it, that oftentimes these storylines, which last over the entire series, or seasons I should say, have to deal with that. I would rate this one a 5. It is a classic. The movie is a classic. It's wonderful. Go check that one out, definitely. And the series aren't bad either. None of them are terrible, and they're all worth a good watch. Any of the movies are, in fact. So I would definitely recommend Ghost in the Shell in any of its incarnations. Now, if you're using this in a BESM game, I recommend 350 points. What you're going to be is members of Section 9. You're going to be elite officers within it that are dealing with a lot of these threats, from the cyber criminals to the corrupt officials to other threats that might exist out there. And you're not only going to be dealing with that, you might deal with sort of more the crime of the weeks, but I would recommend that you're going to have some kind of overarching plot line, especially if you're mimicking more the series than the movies. That they're dealing with this overarching plot line that affects the characters, and each of the little crimes they might deal with links into that. Or during the week they might sort of deal with a little more of that, breaking it down. But at the same time, you're going to have to deal with each of the characters' own pasts, because each of them is going to have their own reasons for ending up in Section 9, and oftentimes they're going to be pretty dark pasts that have very terrible things in them. And also dealing with the loss of humanity and the fact that many of them are very cybernetically enhanced. And what is too much, and when do you stop being human? These are questions that are going to be very important to the entire retrospect of the game, and you should plague your characters with them as much as you possibly can. Now, the last series I want to talk about is the Disappearance of Nagato Yuuki. Now, this is a spin-off of the Suzumiya Haruhi universe. It's set in an alternate world. We focus on Yuki, a member of North High's literature club, with her two friends, Ryoko and Kyon. She has incredible feelings for Kyon, and the series focuses around not only her developing her feelings over the course of it with Kyon, but of her encountering her own mysterious things that are going on around her. Over the course of the series, she does encounter all the other characters from the major original universe, including Suzumiya Haruhi. Of course, I will talk about the main universe on its own in another episode. Now, the genres for this one are a drama. They have a lot of kind of little touching moments that are spurned throughout it, especially when it comes into some of the things about Yuki and her attempts to kind of be with Kyon, even though, you get the feeling that he sort of likes her, but she's very shy and kind of withdrawn, and it just gets these little heartfelt moments. In the same way, it's a romantic comedy. A lot of the times when it deals with that actual romantic aspects, she gets to the very comedic things that are going on there. She just does little things that are very funny, and it gives these little chuckles to go along with it. It's also a school. It revolves around their school lives more than everything, and especially them in the literature club. So it's a school anime through and through. Now, there's another one I rate a 5. I like everything from this entire universe, and this one was very good too. I mean, the Suzumiya Haruhi, I like the main universe very much so too, but this one was very good, touching, heartfelt. It felt right. It was a good series. I'd recommend it a lot. So if you're using this in BESM game, I'd recommend 150 points. You're going to make your characters members of the literature club. They're going to be people there that you're dealing with, of course, their entire relationships between each other, the relationships between them and their friends, and dealing with the school life and possible strange events that might occur around them. They're not going to be as weird as, let's say, some stuff from the main universe, but strange little things might happen that your characters will get involved in that might make the difference between just being a normal sort of school life anime and having a little bit more of interest to it. Of course, along the way, you're going to have NPCs, which could either be exact characters from the anime series, from the universe itself, or they could be representative of them, that you could have replacements of your own NPCs if you wanted to make them that represent them. For example, if none of your players were anywhere near what would be Kyon in this universe, you could have your own version of him in the literature club along with them. So of course it's going to focus more on dealing with school and their friendships, the relationships they have with each other, and then possibly some love connections between your characters, or just general romantic feelings that might evolve, either between your characters or possibly some of those NPCs that you establish early on and place in with them. So that's it for today. I introduced you to 4 more anime series, giving you a little review of them, and then telling you some suggestions that you can use in order to use them in your BESM games if you really want to. In the next episode, of course, got some more series to talk about. But until then, if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please just leave it in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows support for the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you could always check out my Patreon, link in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.